In this video, I'm going to talk about this Cooler Master TD500 MAX, which is basically a TD500 case with the MAX treatment. And that means that it comes with a power supply and an all-in-one water cooler pre-installed, so you can actually build your PC even quicker and even easier than before. Now, we've seen this MAX line before with their smaller cases like the NR200P and the NCore 100. But this is Cooler Master's first ATX case with this semi-pre-built concept. So let's check it out and let's see if it's worth considering or not. Let's begin. The design of this TD500 MAX is not really new. So Cooler Master launched their first TD500 model back in 2018, which was followed then by a MASH version in 2020 and then an updated MASH version in 2023. And now, a year later, they released this MAX version that is pretty much the same case, but it has a gray finish like the NR200P MAX had, and you can only get this gray color if you go for the MAX version. The concept of this case is fairly standard as well. It has a steel chassis, a MASH panel in the front, and a glass panel on the side. The plastic parts in the front are a bit wider and the glass has a bit of a pattern, but other than that, it is a straightforward mid-tower case. The quality is pretty decent when you consider that the regular TD500 that is not MAX will sell for around 100 euros or dollars, and sometimes even less than that. The front I/O is also pretty decent. You get a power button, USB Type-C connection, 2 Type-A ports, and a fan control button. The top of the case has a fairly standard dust filter on it, and the glass panel is toolless. But the inside of the case is where it gets interesting. So you get a 360mm all-in-one cooler that is pre-installed in the front of the case, and instead of having regular cables that are coming out of the pre-installed power supply, they went for a two-step system, and you get some connections next to the motherboard instead, and a bunch of shorter cables to connect your components with. On the back, you get another pre-installed fan, so 4 fans in total, and these are Cooler Master's Mobius fans, so they're better than the fans you would typically find in these sort of cases. You also get a little cover on the PSU shroud that hides all the screws you might need for your build, which can be quite convenient. In the back, we have some space for cable management. It's not a huge amount, but you don't really need that much because most of the cables are already pre-routed and ready to go. You get some simple spots for 2.5-inch SSDs instead of removable brackets, a pretty simple hard drive tray in the bottom, and you get a fan and RGB hub that controls all 4 fans. Just keep in mind that you only have one addressable RGB header free on that hub, so if you want to add some extra fans to the top of the case, for example, you need to make sure you either get fans that can daisy chain or you need to have a splitter you can use. The power supply that is included is an 850 watt 80 plus gold rated model, so it is a very decent base for most mid-range to high-end builds until you get to the point when you want to have a system with an i9 processor paired with an RTX 4090 graphics card where 850 watts will be very, very tight. So for this build, I decided to go for an i9 4900KF and an RTX 4070 Ti Super. I went with the Gigabyte Gaming OC GPU and a Gigabyte motherboard because they go really well with the gray color of the case. And this really was one of the easiest builds I've ever done because installing the cooler and managing the power supply cables are usually the most fiddly and the most time-consuming task when you're building a PC, and here you don't really have to do either. You just need to put the CPU in the motherboard, you need to put the motherboard in the case, you need to mount the all-in-one pump, and you need to connect everything, which is also quite easy because all the connectors are right next to the motherboard. So the only thing I could add is that I wish they included some sort of a GPU holder to prevent the possible GPU sag, plus an extra 12-volt high power cable that is not angled would have been nice because Gigabyte cards, for example, have their connector the other way around. So with the angled one, the cable has to go up instead of under the card. Now, when we only stress the CPU, the 4900KF was pulling 324 watts and it was at 90 degrees Celsius on average, which is not that bad considering how much power was being used there. The internal case temperature was around 40 degrees, which was also somewhat expected because the all-in-one cooler is blowing the heat from the CPU into the case this way, and the system was a few decibels louder than 40 decibels I usually aim for when it comes to any build, pretty much. Now, it's not extremely loud, but you will definitely hear it when it starts to work a bit harder. While playing Cyberpunk 2077 that stresses both the CPU and the GPU, the CPU was pulling 142 watts on average, and it was at 65 degrees Celsius, so that's again very reasonable. The RTX 4070 Ti Super was pulling 283 watts on average, with core and memory temps at around 70 degrees Celsius. Now, the case did get a bit warmer now with an internal temperature of 45 degrees, and that is somewhat fine, but I do think that having the CPU cooler blow the heat out of the top instead of straight into the case would have been much better in general. Again, the build did get a bit louder than I would like it to be, but it is possible to tune the fan speed a bit using Cooler Master's own software and make it a bit quieter manually. That does mean that the temperatures will go up by a little bit, but I think that the difference in temperature is small compared to the drop in noise. Now, here in the Netherlands, the TD500 MAX is currently selling for around 310 euros. So you get the case with the power supply and the all-in-one cooler. Now, if I look at the separate parts, the TD500 MAX V2 is around 100 euros, the power supply is around 110 euros, and a Master Liquid 360 Atmos is around 150 euros. So the TD500 MAX costs less than you would pay for separate parts, and you get them pre-installed, pre-cable managed, and you get some better fans included. So that is a very reasonable price. But in the US, for example, the case is currently selling for $400, which is about $100 more than just the parts alone. So whether this case makes sense or not will totally depend on the prices in your region or if you run into a good discount. So I was checking Amazon last week, for example, and they had it listed for $340 with a $100 coupon, which puts the price down to $240, which is an even better deal than what we pay here in Europe. So if you like this case, it would be wise to do a bit of a research before you buy it, or just put it on your wish list and wait for specials to pop up. Because price-wise, it can definitely make sense, but just not always. So overall, I really do like this Max concept in general. It sacrifices some PC build flexibility for a lot of convenience, which is great if you value your time a lot, or if you're just not as comfortable building your own PC just yet. It is a concept that worked really well with their NR200P Max and the Encore 100 Max cases, and it is definitely something that they should keep pushing to different form factors and different designs. Now, for this TD500 Max specifically, I do have a few notes. So I do think they should have mounted the all-in-one to the top of the case for better thermals, and they should have tuned the fans a bit better than they are right now. So if you do go for this case as it is definitely worth diving into the software a bit more and making it a bit quieter than it is out of the box. I also think they should have added a GPU holder and an extra GPU cable without an angle, since not all GPU models orient their connectors the same way. And most of all, I really do think it is kind of surprising they decided that their first ATX Max case would be a model that was designed in 2018 and not something newer like a Cube 500 or a Masterbox 600, for example. But nevertheless, if you really like this design, you like the convenience of it, and the price is reasonable where you live, just go for it. It is a well-built case that can handle most systems really well. That's it. Now, that is all I had for today, but before I go, let's check out the sponsor of this video. This video was brought to you by Seasonic and their Vertex power supplies. These fully modular power supplies are extremely efficient and very quiet due to their fan design and their hybrid fan mode that stops the fans completely under 40% load. They come with a variety of connections for any kind of system you have in mind, including the 12-volt high-power cable for the latest NVIDIA graphics cards. And to wrap it all up, they now offer a nice and cozy 12-year-long warranty. Check them out using the links in the description below. Thank you all for watching and staying to the end of this video. If you liked it and you want to see more videos like this one, please do consider clicking that subscribe button so you never miss my future uploads. Bye guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.